everybody. Happy Wednesday. This is a presentation on understanding and leveraging the New Hampshire SAS grades 3 to 8 results. My name is Lauren Mercier. I'll be your facilitator this afternoon. Heather Jenkins is our presenter today. Ann Wallace is here from the New Hampshire Department of Education, and she is our math consultant. And we also have Mike Schwartz on the call. He is the president of Demonstrated Success, and he'll be with us this afternoon as well. So just a few logistics for you this afternoon. We want to thank the DOE for partnering with us here. The DOE really makes these webinars possible to educators across the state to be able to access wonderful and helpful information. Everyone will be muted, so when you enter, you don't have to worry about it. You are automatically muted. We would love for you to ask questions. You're welcome to enter your questions in the Q&A portion. It's at the bottom panel of your Zoom screen. We will have natural breaks in the presentation for questions, but we do encourage you to feel free to write questions in as they come up for you. If you have information to share with everyone on the call, you're welcome to use the chat. We will send an email tomorrow with a link to your professional development certificate, a video of this webinar, PowerPoint, and any other documents that Heather has for you linked here. And there will be a brief survey. I'm actually going to put the link in the chat at the end. So we would love for you to just take a moment to fill out that survey. We really do appreciate your feedback, and we read everybody's feedback, and we make adjustments to our programming based on your feedback. So it's really important to us, and thank you very much in advance for taking a minute to do that. I'm going to turn it over to Heather.
All right. Hello, everybody. I just wanted to say hello. I will be turning my camera off. It's a little bit distracting, but just wanted to put the name to a face here. The reminder that I have up here is specifically for today, and just in general, whenever I think about looking at student results or data of any kind, I really sort of fall back on this particular type of quote, which is the fundamental purpose of school is learning, not teaching. So I know we've been working really hard to make sure all of our students have the information available to them, and that we are really looking at ensuring that they are learning that material. So we're going to talk a lot about these New Hampshire SAS results and the data that comes from that learning. Just some information from registration. There were some questions or some comments. I thought I would just, for a few of these, answer them up front so that you can get a general understanding of what this might be, just in case we end up running a little bit long. We have quite a bit of information today. So the first question was, when will the state averages be available? This year, they were available starting in September or October for last year, so it will probably be the same for this year. Mike, you can unmute if that's incorrect, but I believe it will be the September or October timeframe.
That's my understanding. The state likes to wait until they've got all the data, and so that they're an accurate result before they release.
Great, thank you. So this next comment was really more for somebody that's in a new school. And so they're looking at how they're going to look at data for future. I wanted to put this on here because the portion of this that they want to learn about what the students previously scored on their assessments, it might be a little bit tricky to get that information because you would need to be a user in the school in which those students are coming from to be able to get that data, unless for some reason it's provided by the school. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. The next question talks about released items. They do not have released items specifically from the assessment for this year. So you are correct. They don't necessarily release items after each one, but you can take a peek at similar items on those modular and interim results to be able to see those strengths and weaknesses as well. You will be able to see in general when it comes to a reporting category or specific standard or cluster of standards, you'll be able to see the summative results, but it won't be down. You won't be able to see the questions like you do on the modulars or the interms. The next question was about individual student data for writing scores. I'm going to show you how to download that data. You will not be able to see the data on the reporting portal, but once you download the results into Excel or into a CSV file, there's different ways in which you can view those results. So I'll be showing you that. Just a little bit about our agenda for today. We're going to talk. I wanted to do an overview of what the reporting structure is. So how the information is reported and then how it is scored. We're going to view a little bit of the summative data for both, or not even both, for ELA, math, and science. We're also going to look at the different data views. So the information that you can download or view outside of the reporting portal. And then we'll wrap up with any questions. Again, as Lauren had mentioned, please ask questions as we go along. Lauren will hold the questions for a little bit or interrupt when she thinks it might be necessary. So make sure you're asking questions all along the way if you need. In general, the reporting information, we have the math and science results are available on the portal once the tests are completed. For ELA, you have to do the reading and writing portions before you will see any of the ELA results. I'll also tell you, we've been noticing recently, specifically over the last couple of weeks, it is taking a little bit more time for those results to become available. It's a very busy time on the Cambium website, and so it takes a little bit longer for some of the results to show up. We're noticing specifically that the ELA scores are taking quite a bit of time to show up. They're not necessarily showing up that day or the next day. It might take a couple of days or more for some specific student results. And a lot of that might have to do with the scoring of their writing. If there's any sort of indication that they're in between scores or not quite a specific score, and the computer generated scoring is not completely what they feel might be accurate, they will hand score it. So those do also take a little bit more time as well. So when it comes to seeing results, anybody who is set up as a teacher or what's called a TE in TIDE, you will need rosters set up in TIDE to be able to view any of your test results. So if you are looking in the reporting portal and nothing is showing up, you don't see any classes or anything, you just need to talk to your it's one of your administrators in your school so that they can set up a roster so you'll be able to see your student scores. Anybody who is a school test coordinator or a district test coordinator can see results. No rosters or anything need to be set up. You're able to view all of the student information. And then anybody who's set up as a proctor or a TA in TIDE, you will not be able to view results at all, even if rosters are set up. So that proctor setting is only to be able to administer the assessments. Just general information about rosters for anybody who's curious. Students can be part of multiple rosters. So they can, if they have specifically in a middle school model, you might have more than one section where a student needs to be part of different teachers' rosters. That's completely acceptable and fine. Usually teachers have access to their class or a grade and can be given access to multiple grades or classes if needed. So sometimes they'll have their particular sections or their specific classes and then also have a roster for the whole grade. So rosters allow those teachers, again, to see the student results for any New Hampshire SAS assessments. It's not just the summatives. So if you were administering modulars or interims, you also need rosters set up to see those results. General recommendations for rosters is anybody who needs to be able to see student results needs a roster, right? And they can also, just in general, you want to make sure that the roster, again, could be created for the whole grade or each section or class. And then just make sure when you're naming the rosters, it's clear which roster you're talking about. So here's a couple of examples of the ways that you might name a roster so that folks can understand which roster is which. When it comes to the reporting categories for the summative assessments, there are subjects, and then we have reporting categories, we have clusters, and we have standards. So I just want to explain a little bit of each one of these. The subjects that we're talking about are ELA, math, and science. All of these subjects and the questions that are related have to do specifically and are related to the standards for mathematical practice, the English language and art standards, both Common Core, and then the science is the next generation science standards. When it comes to reporting categories, so within each subject, there are reporting categories. Here are the reporting categories for math, ELA, and science. So I just want you to notice here that these reporting categories a lot of times are related to the domains of math, but every once in a while you'll see these and any of these that have the and, it's two domains within one particular reporting category. So I just wanted you to understand that as well. For English language arts, there are 3 reporting categories. There's reading informational text, reading literature, and writing. And then the sciences are your different areas of science: earth and space science, life science, and physical science. You're going to be getting all of these slides and some other supplemental information, so you don't have to worry about writing any of this down or committing any of this to memory. For the reporting structure, as we're looking at the Common Core documents, I wanted to show you a little bit of where you're going to see the reporting categories. So the reporting categories, again, this is just an example of 5th grade math. A couple of the reporting categories are that operations and algebraic thinking and numbers and operations base 10. So those are the big broad categories. For ELA, we have reading standards for literature, reading standards for informational text, and then we would also have the writing standards for the reporting category. And for science, if we're looking at the NGSS website, it looks a little bit like on the right-hand side for 5th grade, and then they're broken down into physical science, life science, and earth science for the reporting categories. When it comes to clusters, and standards, I wanted to show you a little bit again in relation to the Common Core. When you're looking at the reporting portal and seeing the clusters and those standards, as we're looking at math, a cluster might be write and interpret numerical expressions or analyze patterns and relationships. Again, this is 5th grade. Those are clusters of standards underneath operations and algebraic thinking. Within those clusters are your specific standards that are attached to those clusters of standards. So all of this is reported in the Cambium reporting portal. So if we're looking at right now, we're reading reading standards for literature. The clusters of standards underneath there might be key ideas and details and craft and structure. And then the standards individually are listed underneath that as well. For the clusters for science, we have right here what are called disciplinary core ideas for next generation science standards. There are not specific, there's not specific data down to the standard level for science. It just goes down to the cluster level. I'll show you a little bit on the reporting portal what that looks like as well. I just want to pause there. I can see that there's a couple of things in the chat. I'm not sure if there's other questions as well, just to make sure that we're all on the same page before I move on.
There are no questions about any of the content. It was just some questions about access to slides and a couple of other housekeeping things.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So this next portion I want to go through is the summative scoring structure. So we have the reporting and basically how things are scored. It's all based on that reporting structure. So I'll show you what I mean here. You're going to see a lot of the same little squares here, but I'll show you how they are represented within the reporting portal. So again, you have your subjects. For the scoring structure and the way that the subjects are scored, there are 4 different levels of proficiency within the reporting portal. So for subjects, 4 levels. Level 1 is that below proficient, and you can see a little bit of the language that goes along with that. Level 2 is approaching proficient. Level 3 is proficient in applying. And level 4 is highly proficient in applying. We're looking for, when it comes to your proficiency levels, you want a level 3 or more. So level 3 or 4 is where we're looking for students to be. So again, that was for this specific subject, right? Now, the way that these proficiency levels are figured out is something called cut scores. So here are the general cut scores for math, ELA, and science. These are the current ones. In the future, they might be changing just a little bit, but this is what they are specifically for this year. And so as we're looking at those subject scores, again, it's based on what's called a scaled score. So I just am showing you a little bit of a screenshot. If I'm looking overall at a subject here, we're looking, this happens to be math. And I know that because it says reported quantile measure. If we're looking here, this scaled score for a specific student determines their level. So those are those cut scores. So in between specific cut scores, you will see it equals a specific proficiency level. You can also see to the right of where their scaled score is, there's a plus or minus and a number. The higher the number, the less precise the scaled score is. So you just want to kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at those levels. When we look at the scoring for a specific reporting category, so now we might be looking within the subject of ELA or math. These are those reporting categories, again, that you will see within the reporting portal. Those reporting categories are only scored on 3 levels of proficiency. So if you're in there and you're taking a peek and you're thinking you don't see that blue and that, oh my goodness, we don't have anybody who is, you know, highly proficient in anything, that's actually not one of the categories that are for reporting categories within the Cambium reporting portal. So we're looking at low, at or approaching, or on or above for a specific reporting category. Part of the reasoning behind this is because each reporting category has a limited number of questions. So because the number of questions is not as big as obviously the overall assessment, it's a little bit harder to determine somebody who might be highly proficient as opposed to on or above proficiency. As we're going through here, I just want to explain a little bit about the levels of proficiency. So for each reporting category, there are performance level descriptors. And what it does is you'll be able to click on that proficiency and it will tell you what low, at or approaching, or on or above means for that particular reporting category. I put a couple of different examples in here for what might be the indicator for low, at or approaching, or on or above for different portions of the assessment. So there's some math, some ELA, and some science ones here. I'll show you where you can find that particular information when I show you what the reporting portal looks like. When we're looking at the performance levels, they're obviously based on student responses, right? So if we're looking here, and I have a student that I'm looking at, this happens to be science. We're looking here at all the different areas of science, and we are able to see their proficiency level underneath here. So we have cut scores for the overall for ELA, math, and science, but we do not have cut scores for specific reporting categories at this point. So I cannot tell you exactly what a scaled score is for earth, space science, life science, and physical science on the Cambium reporting portal at this time. I just wanted to clear up, there are some times where folks, one of the biggest questions I get is that you see a student overall who might be in the below proficiency or level 1 overall for ELA, but then you see for their reading literature and their reading informational text that they are a level 2, and it gets a little bit confusing. So this particular graphic shows you, as we go overall, you've got 4 different portions of this overall score. So you've got 4 levels here. This level 2 ends up widening a little bit as we get down into the specific reporting categories. So there are times in which somebody might be overall level 1, but they are a really low level 2 for the reporting categories underneath there. So that can be a little bit confusing. The same thing happens at the high end. You might see somebody who is a level 4 and you're thinking, well, wait, how come they're a level 2 for reading literature and reading informational text? Maybe they're a level 3 for something else. But they're in the overall level 4 category. So just wanted to show you the graphic of sometimes as we get into specific reporting categories, that middle portion gets a little bit bigger.
Heather,
Mm-hmm.
sorry to interrupt.
No.
We've had a couple of questions come through, so I didn't know if this was a good time or if you
That's
want to.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a question about released items. So will there be released items or only for interim module tests?
There is no release. There are no released items at this time for these summatives specifically for this year. It's not like I feel like back in the day, SBAC used to release a certain number of items each year. They are not at this point releasing any items to my knowledge for these summatives. Some of the released items from past are in the practice tests, but they don't specifically last year and this year. I know that they have not released any items from the summative. So I don't anticipate that happening. Annie, if for some reason you know on a different level at the DOE something else, but that is not my understanding. So I don't believe there will be any released items.
No, at this point, there are no released items.
Okay, thank you. And then how does a school coordinator create rosters? And another question from the same participant.
We're not going to be getting into creating rosters for this particular webinar, but they can certainly reach out to me and I can help them with creating rosters if needed.
Perfect. So if testing is completed, is it too late to create the rosters?
Nope, you can create them at any time.
Perfect.
As long as it's within this particular school year. Like you couldn't create them for last year's summative. You could create them for this year though, and it doesn't matter. You're not all is lost. You can create them at any time for in the next few weeks.
Thank you. Question about what does this mean? Quote, the student's essay could not be scored due to prompt copy match condition code.
Oh, I was going to get into that in a little bit, but I can answer it right now. Prompt copy match means that their response matches verbatim too much of what the reading portion of the writing section is, if that makes sense. So they have specific, sort of articles or reading that they have to do, and their answer was either copied from that or directly typed with the exact wording. So it's pretty much they are like plagiarizing a little bit of what's going on in the reading portion of that.
Okay, almost done. Couple more. What would cause the cut score to change? When were they last evaluated? Are they have they been altered to account for the COVID slip?
They have not been altered to account for the COVID slip. There was a little bit of discussion, I think, before the summative window opened, that in the future, they might be looking at the possibility of updating some of the cut scores, but nothing has been updated to my knowledge at all.
Okay, thank you. And one more. What is the difference between at or yellow versus on green? Does the yellow at include students who are proficient?
If we're going back up, we're talking. Sorry, right here. I believe that this is what they're talking about.
Yes.
So this is proficient in applying, but then the highly proficient is above that. This one is the, sorry, I'll scooch through these. This one right here is where a lot of people, the terminology gets a little bit tricky because they're at or approaching or on or above. It's been something that is really tricky with the language. We're talking proficient, you want green.
Okay. Great. All right. Thanks, Heather.
Okay, so now I just want to get into, after the reporting categories, there are clusters and standards that are also going to be reported. So this is an example here of some ELA for reading literature. As we look on the reporting portal, these are the clusters of standards. So this is craft and structure, and this is integration of knowledge and ideas. And those will have specific scores attached to them. The scores, though, are not the red, the yellow, and the green necessarily. There's that overall score you can see, but down to the cluster level, we're talking about a lot of these little symbols here. So I want to talk about what some of this is. So just so you know, the clusters are only viewed at the grade and roster level. As soon as you drill down into the student, you're going to get back into these three colors. So this right here, we're looking at rosters right now. So if I kind of make this a little bit bigger, you can then see within each cluster, there are standards that are attached to those particular clusters. I want to go into a little bit, again, this is just at the roster or grade level. I want to go into what these, how you can figure out what this is. So you've got craft and structure standard 4. So as I was showing you the Common Core screenshots a little bit earlier, you would be able to decipher those on the Common Core, but if you're in the reporting portal and you click on that little I, it will also tell you exactly what that standard is that's attached to it. So it's kind of a little dynamic link with the I, it will tell you the exact standard. As we're looking at these standards, if I kind of just open up that craft and structure and integration of knowledge and ideas, I want to talk a little bit about what it means to be proficient and what these particular symbols mean. So the symbols are the checkboxes above the proficiency standard. The little consumer reports one is at or near proficiency. The X is below, and then the little asterisk is insufficient information. What that means is there just weren't enough questions that were given on the assessment to be able to give that a particular proficiency level. So you might either have a low number of students or just maybe not very many students got questions that were related. If we're talking about weak or strong, these are the symbols that you'll see with weak or strong. And so the plus is an area of strength. The equal sign is performance is similar to the performance on the test as a whole. Negative is the area of weakness, and again, that insufficient information. It's important to know that these symbols are representative of the group of students that you are currently looking at this data for. This is not in relation to the state. It is not saying, oh, they are an area of strength overall compared to everybody in the state. It's really compared to themselves. The reason that this is compared to themselves is they are looking at each portion of this assessment. So I'm looking at reading literary text right now. For every school that's looking at this, for this weak or strong area, it is telling you for your particular students, there is always going to be an area of strength or an area of weakness. And the way that this works is, if you're a really high performing district, you will still have an area of weakness, even though your students might be performing really well on the assessment. In the same respect, if your students traditionally are very low performing students, you will also still have an area of strength. So it will tell you overall, even if you're below the proficiency standard, it might be an area of strength compared to the other areas of this assessment for your students. That's always really tricky. So I'm just going to pause there for just a second. I'll move on, but I won't go too fast if there's any clarification that's needed. For science, it's the same thing here, but what you have is you have your reporting category and you have your clusters, but there are no standards. So these little proficiency and weak or strong, they mean the same thing within the science area. All right.
All right.
Questions on that?
So there was a question in the chat to us. Will there be a student practice writing assessment in the future?
You mean like for a practice test? I'm assuming that's what that means.
Assuming that's what that means. Tina, if you need to clarify, feel free to do that.
Yeah, there is, like within the ELA practice tests, there were in the past, you were able to see what the writing assessment would look like within the practice test. It's sort of towards the end of the ELA practice test. But the best way that I know to be able to do a practice and really see how students would do would be to give a modular assessment. There are, for every grade level, there are the two types of essays or writing assessments. So there's the opinion writing or the explanatory writing, and there's two versions of each one of those within the modular assessments. So I would recommend doing an actual modular assessment if you really want to see where your students are or be able to practice the writing. If you have any questions about how to access those or what to do with those, they can definitely email me.
Okay, thank you. And then a comment, there's a participant here who has a few students who took the test that she doesn't have results for, and the tests were taken over 2 weeks ago. Can you sort of advise?
If it was over 2 weeks ago, I can, I'm assuming it's ELA because the math is coming up pretty quickly. Most likely their students have not submitted their writing, even though they think they have. That is the biggest problem that I've seen for folks. There are definitely a couple of sites out there that I've been talking to recently that aren't seeing their writing results. And I looked and their students have in fact submitted the assessments. It's taking 7 to 10 days for some of those students. Like there's a sprinkling of them that they're not seeing, like maybe they have 25 students and there's 4 of them that they haven't seen their results for yet and they haven't popped up. Those are probably being hand scored and those are going to take a little bit. But if you have a whole group of students and none of the scores are showing up at all, it is most likely because the test has not been submitted properly. So if that person wants to email me as well, I can check for them and we can hop online and I can show them how to look for that in time.
Okay, perfect. It's 2 students. And then just a clarification, did you say a roster is needed to view the clustered or standard reports? Can a district coordinator view these reports without a roster?
So the district test coordinators can view data without any rosters at all. Same with school test coordinators. It's the teachers that need the rosters to be able to see the data. That being said, though, what will happen is if you do not have rosters set up, if you are a school or district coordinator, you will see every single student in one list and you won't be able to see them by class, which is fine, but that's just know that they won't be broken up into groups of students.
Thank you, Heather.
Okay, so let's go in and let's take a peek and I'll show you what you're going to be doing in the actual reporting portal. So step 1, we're going to go into the portal. Here's the link. If you just type in New Hampshire SAS, literally NHSAS in your browser, it's the first thing that shows up. It will bring you right to this particular page. This is the home page. It's the New Hampshire Department of Education. You'll hear me say the Cambium reporting portal because that's the company who hosts and actually creates all the assessments. And they work with the Department of Education here in New Hampshire to be able to provide the assessments. So if you hear me saying the word Cambium, that's just a company who is doing the assessments. From this page, you're going to choose test administration. And then it will bring you to another page and you're going to scroll towards the bottom and you're going to click reporting. If you are not somebody who administered the assessments or you have not taken your test administration certification yet this year, you won't be able to look at reports until you do. So if you get a little error, that's why maybe. So once you're in the reporting area, it's going to ask you to log in. It is a secure login and it will bring you to this page here. So this is like the home page of the reporting portal here. On this page, you can see all of the different assessments, and depending on which grade levels you have at your school, you will see the average scores for those subjects. If you're a teacher, you will only see scores associated with students in which you have access to. So you might not see all of the grade levels. You might not see what you're seeing right here. It just depends on what your ability to view in the system is. So as you are looking at this, you're just going to choose the subject that you want to view. So this is, I'm just going to choose math, and it opens up again any of the assessments that are associated with students that you have access to. So this has everything listed here. At the top, you can see that there's these little arrows that are up and down. Those you're able to sort any of the columns here. So specifically, if you're a district person or a school person, you might have a lot of information here and you might want to have to sort through it. You can do that. And then each one of these is its own information, right? Again, I'm seeing those students that I have access to. I'm able to see all of this general information. I can see what grade level that it was. I can see the test reason. I can see how many students. I can see the average score. I can see, because I'm at that subject level, I'm seeing the 4 levels of proficiency. And I'm also seeing the last date in which this particular assessment was taken. So as the students submit their tests, that date changes. If I want to go in and view any specific assessment, I can also, before I move on, if you are a district person, you might want to filter by school. So if you click on this little filter area, you can choose a specific school and show the information for just that school. So as I choose a specific assessment, it brings me to that page that has the information for that assessment. This view right here is a district person because you have school 1, school 2, school 3. If you were a school coordinator and you were logging in for just your school, it would go automatically to the roster level. And if you're a teacher, it will show you all of the different rosters of students that you are associated with. So as we're in here, just want to point out some of the information again. We have the general information, again, student count. This is that scaled score directly correlating with how these performance levels are figured out. And then you can see over here the percent proficient, and then this is for each one of these particular schools. If you wanted to go down, this is, again, I showed you the scaled scores, but in the system, if you click on that little eye, it will give you the particular range for the scaled scores for that grade level. This is the whole thing, but if I were to click on that eye, I'm looking at grade 5, it would tell me what my scaled score ranges were for grade 5. Over on the right-hand side, so I'm right now at the specific level of math. So I'm at the reporting category, and over here, I'm able to see all of my different reporting categories for math. These little pluses are live. Those are what you're able to click on to be able to open up any single one of those reporting categories. So if I'm going to look at operations and algebraic thinking, this is what it looks like on the reporting portal. And so you're starting to see operations and algebraic thinking on the right. That's my reporting category. Here are my clusters. And again, here are my standards. Any one of these little eyes it will bring up the information that is associated with that. So you could see which standards these are. You could see what those symbols meant for the proficient or weak or strong. Same thing with the average scaled score here. So again, we're looking at all those checks, the above, at or near, below, and insufficient information. Same thing for the weak or strong. We're looking at those pluses, the equals, the area of weakness, or insufficient information. If I wanted to go into a specific school, so again, if we're a district person, sometimes you might already be in your school. We have here the roster information. Again, if you don't have rosters, you won't see any. It will just say students not on any roster, and then you'll be able to look at all of the students. Here's again the information about those rosters. Right, and you can look at any of the information on the reporting categories for within that particular area. If I'm looking at in a roster, just in general, just so you know, for the two areas of math that you won't see any of the pluses, minuses, checkboxes, equals, or anything like that, is the modeling and problem solving in the use of mathematical reasoning. What you see for those is going to be that general distribution of level 1, level 2, and level 3. And it does not go down into the clustered or standard level for those. It's basically going to just tell you overall how students are doing for modeling and problem solving and use of mathematical reasoning. So those two are just a little bit different.
Heather, can I interrupt you for just a second? Since we're talking about scores, we have a question. Did the scale score carry across grade levels? For example, if a 5th grade score is at level 1, could you look at grade 3 or 4 and correlate the scale score to a grade level of proficiency?
No, not to my knowledge.
No, it's a progression. So it's the progression of the scale, and depending on the grade level you are is where you would fall. So you could have the same score in a 2nd grader as you would a 4th grader, but for the 2nd grader it's proficient. For the 4th grader it would not be.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so as we're moving in, if I want to get into a roster and I can see my specific students, now since I'm at the student level, you'll see the student names there. You'll see specifically what each one of those students is and what their level is overall. And then as I go, and if I wanted to open any of these areas here, now what I'm seeing is how that particular student scored within each particular reporting category. So the student, again, student level is just for the reporting category. You cannot get down to the cluster or standard level within the Cambium reporting portal. It's a little bit different if you have Performance Plus, but Cambium does not give you that information. Just wanted to show you, I've been showing you a little bit of math, show you a little bit of ELA. It's mostly the same information, but your 3 reporting categories are, again, reading informational text, reading literary text, and writing. I'm at the school level here. As soon as I go, again, we need those students to be completed with the reading and writing before this shows up. As I open these areas, it's just like that math area where you're going to get a lot of those pluses and minuses and those proficiency areas in the weak or strong. So those look very similar. And if I'm going to go into writing, this is what the writing area looks like. It's kind of a lot to look at. They have specific percentages for each one of the areas that writing is scored. So conventions is up to 2 points, evidence and elaboration is 4 points, organization and purpose is 4 points. There are 2 types of essays. There's the informative and explanatory or opinion. So you're able to see how students scored. This is by roster here. And you can see that, what percentage of students scored for each area. Now, this little green here this is the indicator for the highest percentage. So 91% of these students on this roster scored 2 points. And then this roster was the lowest roster here to score on evidence and elaboration. So they're really doing well with conventions, evidence and elaboration. This is the weakest area. And then this roster here, I'm going to do this. This roster here is the lowest for organization and purpose. They scored the lowest number of points. Same thing for this next one. This particular roster, again, is the lowest in conventions. Interesting enough, it has the lowest number of students for conventions and the highest number. There's nobody in between. And then the same thing for evidence and elaboration. There's no green here because nobody scored the maximum number of points. And then this is the red, this is the lowest. This is students that aren't on a roster. So there might be a couple of students or one student that might be outside of a roster. And then this one's the one that is got the most number of points for that particular area. So the red and the green is just showing, even if you were, if you had just a single roster here, you would see, you would have a lot of red and green on a specific roster. This is really the way that a lot of times you can see if there's certain groups of kids that are doing better than others. But the red and the green doesn't matter to me. What I really just want to see is what percentage of students are scoring what number of points. That, again, that green didn't appear because nobody had the highest point value. As soon as I get further down, so what's going to happen is I'm only able to see this at the school or the roster level. This information is not available at the student level. So as soon as I click into where the students are, I won't see any writing information, but I'm going to show you how to download it. So if I go in and I look at the school name and I look at a specific roster, here are the students, you can see that that writing disappeared. If I look at reading informational text and reading literature, I'm going to get just my general level of proficiency for each one of those reporting categories. If we're talking science, I'm just going to run through that a little bit as well. So if you click on science, you're able, again, it's only grades for 5, 8, and 11. You can choose your grade level, and then you can see again, you've got earth science, life science, and physical science. If you open any one of those up, you're able to see whether they're weak or strong in that particular area. This is down to, again, these little, it does not go down into the specific standard necessarily level. And if I'm looking at science into the roster here, and I want to open all of those, you can see once I'm down to the student level, I'm only able to see the levels of proficiency here. I'll pause there for a second, see if there's any questions.
Okay, so there is a follow-up from the participant who asked the question about the same score for a grade 2 and grade 4 example in the last one that I had asked you. So she is saying clearly the grade 4 student would not be proficient. However, could you assume the 4th grader is performing at a grade 2 level?
I don't believe so, no. So if I show you here, I'm going to just scroll back up and I'm going to find the area that I have the cut scores. So, I mean, it is a progression, but it's not where you're being looked at, like in the 4th grade assessment, you're being assessed on 4th grade standards. In the 5th grade assessment, you're being assessed on 5th grade standards. So it's not like an adaptive test in the respect that it's not like if I continuously ask, like say I'm a 5th grader and I'm continually getting questions wrong, it does not bring me down to a 3rd grade level of question. It keeps me at the 5th grade level, but maybe a lower depth of knowledge question. It will not bring me, across grade levels. So that's not the way that the New Hampshire SAS Summative works. They're adaptive only in the way that if you're scoring questions that are a little bit easier, they'll start giving you maybe a little bit more of a higher depth of knowledge, but it's not adaptive in the way that, like you would think maybe a STAR assessment, or I believe that NEWA might be the same way as well. So they're not adaptive that way. So I wouldn't say that a 5th grader who's scoring a 410 is at a 3rd grade level. You know what I mean? Like here's the level here. It wouldn't, they're just low, they're a level 1. It doesn't necessarily put them into a level, a 3rd grade level, if that makes any sense.
Heather, yes, a lot of that would be once you know your students score range they fell into, that's where you would get into your formative assessments in the classroom. And if the person wants to email me, I can send them a document that has some scaffolding on. So if this is the 5th grade standards, what are the 4th and the 3rd grade standards that build into that?
Thank you, Annie. Okay.
Perfect. And then will the writing show individual student scores or only by class?
It shows individual student scores, but not on the reporting portal. I'm going to show them how to do it right now.
Sounds good. Thanks, Heather.
So these are the different data views that you can use to be able to look at specific reports. So the reporting portal shows you everything that I've just shown you there visually, but I'm going to show you how to download some of the information and to view some of the information in a reporting form. So the first way that folks traditionally look at the summative data is that individual student report. This is the one that goes home after students have finished. It gets in a sealed envelope. It goes home to mom or dad. And so as we're looking at the individual student report, it is showing that specific student only, right? For ELA, math, or science. It's available in simple or detailed report. This gives you a little bit of information about what the simple report is and what the detailed report is. I'm going to show them to you. So again, this is what can go to parents. You can also print it with supplemental information. I'll show you what that looks like as well. And they can be batch printed, or you can do it specifically one by one for students. So here's how you're going to run that. You're going to click on the download student results right from that main page. And it will bring up a page that looks like this. I was right on the main page, so I'm going to show you how to go through all of the different criteria here. But if you had drilled into a specific class, you could have downloaded the results from there and it would have populated some of these fields. But because I did it from the home page, I'm going to be choosing my test reason. I'm going to be choosing my subject. I'm going to be choosing my school or specific students. And then I have the information over here. I want the individual student report. I chose simple, and then you click generate. And then it looks like nothing happened. You're going to go on your home screen here and you're going to click that inbox. And on the inbox, it has everything that you've downloaded here. And you're just going to click the one that you want to actually view. It will put it down on your toolbar, right? So it goes right into your downloads and you can open it there. This is what the individual student report looks like in the simple way for math. It gives you the general information about their score, what their performance levels are for each particular reporting category. That's a little bit bigger. And so that is the simple one. The detailed one here, I'm going to show you how to do that as well. So again, download results, you're choosing all your information, make sure you have everything. And now you choose detailed. I still have this as individual student report. As soon as I click detailed and generate, it does the same thing. I go to my inbox, I download it. And the detailed report is a little bit more information and it's 3 separate pages. So the first page looks like this. Again, it's showing their score. This one is particularly for ELA. It shows you on the second page a longitudinal chart. So if this is somebody that is in 4th grade or above, it will have 2 areas here where it will show you where they were in 3rd grade or 4th grade. Or this could be 5th grade or 6th grade. This just happens to be a 4th grade student. So it's showing them where they are for 3rd and 4th. And then this is how they did on each area of the assessment. All right, you can see the overall raw score here is 5 out of 10, but it doesn't tell you exactly what they scored unless you look at it right here. So you can see they scored 1 out of 2 points on conventions, 2 out of 4 on evidence and elaboration, and 2 out of 4 on organization and purpose. So for a specific student, you can see that information right here. This is the supplemental material. This is what is good for parents to see because this just gives you a little bit of an understanding of what each section of the report is. So that is the individual student report. I want to show you now how you can download a student data file. So these are for those folks who really like to work with Excel or some other, you could work with, like a Google Sheet as well, but it's going to download to Excel or a CSV. So you can download results at a district, school, roster, or student level. They can go into Excel, CSV, or text file. You can again download ELA, math, or science. And you can download results and include overall scores and scores for reporting categories. And the ELA results can include individual writing scores. So here's how you do that. You're on this main page. You're going to click that download student results again. And you're going to fill out the criteria for what you want to be able to see. And then now what I'm going to do is look over here. And I've got this download student data file. So not the individual student report, the student data file here. I like Excel, so that's the default. It will default to Excel. And then this data file for each test, if I was doing more than one test, if I wanted ELA, math, and science, you could download a separate one for each test. Or you could do one single combined data file, ends up being a zip file. As soon as I generate it again, I have to go into my inbox, download it, and this is what it looks like. So this is an ELA example. This is, I took the student's information off of here. This is their scaled score. This is what level they were overall. This is what they were for reading informational text, reading literature, and then here is their score for the essay. This is the explanatory, if they had an essay that was for the informative or explanatory, their scores will be on here, or if they had it for opinion, it would be over here. So you'll see these NA, that's because they had a different essay. This prompt copy match is just that they're copying and pasting too much from what the reading portion of it was, or those little articles that they have to read or passages that they have to read. There's a couple of other ones too, but for the most part, like I think there's one that's like not enough information. So maybe they just didn't write much at all. So you might get something that is indicating that students didn't write enough either. So again, this is one of the only ways that we can see that specific student data with our students listed along the left-hand side and all of their information on what they scored on the right. We can also print results. This is very similar to downloading those student results. You can, again, it's district, school, or roster. You can print the results, save as a PDF or as an Excel CSV file. ELA, math, or science, and again, can include overall or reporting category scores, and you can have those individual writing scores. So on the main page, what I'm saying here is printing results work best when you look at the performance by student tab. This is the tab that I'm talking about here. If you wanted to go by roster, you could, but what happens is all the students aren't listed there. You'd have to go into a specific roster. But if you wanted all of your rosters all in one place, you would click on that performance by student. I'm already in the assessment that I want to print. So I'm hitting print. And this is where it comes up. I love the way that PDFs look. I like the color, but this is not the place for a PDF. I'll tell you, it does not print very well. So I would choose Save to Excel. As soon as you do that, you click confirm, and it will pop up your printing results. You can then click on the one that you want to download. And this is what it looks like. This just happens to be science. I wanted to show you all the different reports that you could see. So here are your students' names. Here's our overall science, and then each reporting category and what they scored. The last report I want to show you is the longitudinal report. This is a comparative report, and actually this should say 2021 and 2022. It's available at the district and school level, and you can do from ELA or math, and it's only good for grades, really, it's actually 4 or above, because you need them to have 2 years of the New Hampshire SAS. So here's how you are going to do that. You're going to click on whatever subject you would like. Again, it's really just ELA and math because the science reports are a little bit further apart from one another. As soon as you figure out you want, again, grade 4 or above, I'll click on grade 4, and the longitudinal report is right here. As soon as I click that, it will bring this up, and this shows you basically what last year was compared to this year and how students are scoring. If you want to look at it, if you click score here, this is the way I like to look at it. I like to see the specific proficiency levels visible to me. And then it basically shows you the information. If I want to print this is where you do want to print the PDF because it's got all that nice color in there. So if you click saved PDF, what you want to do, make sure this is landscape. It defaults to portrait. It does not print well portrait. You want to print landscape. And then you want to confirm. It will show up in your inbox and you'll be able to download it. And it basically looks exactly like this. That was fast. I'm looking at the time. We are out of time. So I just want to, I wanted to go through those. Do we have any questions?
There was someone just looking for clarification about the green and red boxes on the writing clusters, like where it says 100% and it's highlighted in green.
Okay. So if we go up to the writing,
While you're doing that, Heather, I am gonna pop the link to our survey right in the chat so that folks can
Perfect.
be doing
That's-
that. Thank you so much in advance for doing that. We appreciate it.
So the question was,
So the question, let me scroll back up here. What do the green and red boxes on the writing clusters mean? Like where it says 100% and is highlighted in green.
okay, so the green is, that is the roster that has the highest percentage of students getting that point, the highest point value. So for conventions, it would be 2 points. For evidence and elaboration, anybody who scored 4 points. And same thing for organization and purpose, 4 points. So that's the percentage of students who scored the highest number of points. That's just highlighted in green. The red is the percentage of students who scored the lowest number of points. So that would be 0 for conventions, 1 for evidence and elaboration, or 1 for organization and purpose. So if you look here, hold on, sorry. I'm trying to get, there we go. If you look here, there's nobody who scored 0 here, so there's no red box. This particular group is the highest scoring roster that has the most amount of students who scored 2 points. So 91% beats out everybody. This particular roster here is the lowest number of students scoring, or actually is the highest number of lowest scoring students, if that makes sense. Nobody scored 4 points, so there's no green. This is the roster who had the highest amount of students that scored the 1 point. This is the roster who had the highest number of students scoring 4 points. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have just one more. I think Annie mentioned a scaffolding document. And so the participant is wondering if that's something that perhaps we could pop into the resources that we send out to everybody.
Sure.
In the folder, is that something we could do?
Yes, I'll try and put it in tonight when I get home. And
Awesome.
it's just for mathematics, so people understand.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Annie, very much.
Welcome.
And then let's go one final question here. Once we see the scores for a student, will it stay the same or can it change?
Nope, stays the same.
All
The
right.
scores never change.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think that's it for questions, Heather. Thanks.
Okay, so please, please, please fill out that survey. That would be super helpful. We have another one of these sessions coming up, and then we also have an SAT webinar coming up on the 16th. And then here's the general information about who we are and how you can contact us. Thank you so much. This has gone over what I had anticipated, so I appreciate you all staying on.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Mhm. I'll stay on for another minute just in case we get some questions, but. If Lauren Teeden is still on, hello. I hope to see you soon. I can see, Teresa, you're raising your hand. It is a little bit tricky to, in a webinar format, to have you raise your hand, but I do see your question. It says, are the interims scored similar to the summatives? They are similar in nature, the number of questions and all of that, but the interims, the reporting portal for the interims is a little bit different than for the summatives. You're able to see a little bit more information about the specific questions that students get. You're able to see down to the question for the students, and because those interim questions are directly related to the modulars. So you're able to see the questions as opposed to on the summatives. The scaled scores and all of that, I'm not really sure how they relate, but the modulars and the interns are supposed to be a pretty direct correlation to what the summative questions are going to be, because we use those a lot for ensuring that students are mastering skills.
Another question popped up, Heather.
Where do I find the weighting of the writing portion for the ELA score? I'm not sure what they mean by that.
Sonia, if you want to elaborate on that, that would be great. And Teresa has a follow-up.
Yeah, the interim scores are not reported to the state. Those are just a formative, or for, some people that, like they do them, 2 or 3 times a year. Those are, the state's not really looking at those, no. I think I know what you mean by the weighting. So the overall ELA score, what portion of that is for writing? I know that we've had this question in the past. It is 10 points. And the rest of the assessment is worth a little bit over 30 points or so. So it's, Annie, maybe correct, I can't remember what we had talked about with Melissa in the past, but I thought it was roughly a quarter of the ELA score, but I could be, we can get that information if you don't have it.
Not off the top of my head, but it is a small percentage is taken off just for, quality assurances.
Great. Okay, I think that is it.
Great.
All right, thank you, everybody. Reach out if you need anything further. Thanks, ladies.
Bye.